All right, everybody. So we're ready to dig into the research. I'm going to divide up this research part into three, I think, shorter videos. If you want to just peek in at the end of the last video or the end of this whole series, you'll find out the key points I have. So you don't have to follow me through the research. But if you want to, because if you want to do your own research, you might find it interesting. So the first thing I did is go to Google, of course, and put in feminism and climate change. Now, when I did that, I did get a lot of hits and I got a lot of things with initials, which I'm going to tell you the truth, sort of intimidated me. But then I also found something from Georgetown University. They're smart there, right? So here we are at the Georgetown article, and this is something that you're going to find, and I want to warn you about an article like this. So as we look at it, we're going to see that we're going to have some words that are fairly abstract. So we see unencumbered disproportionately, exacerbated in settings, rapid onset disaster. We have a lot of abstraction here. This is an extremely academic report, which means that there are absolutely no pictures that I can use. There's no visuals. It's all extremely abstract. When you find information like this, it's not going to be very useful. There could be good information in the rest of this report. No disrespect to the folks at Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security. But this intro is so abstract that it tells me, no, I'm not going to go with this. I'm going to move on. Change my search words because feminism would bring me, the word feminism would probably bring me to more academic articles. So I changed it to women and climate change. And let's look at what happened here. With women and climate change, I found something really great, a fact sheet from Oxfam. Fact sheet, climate change, and women. This is perfect, turned out to be a great resource. If you see things like fact sheet, in fact, I would probably Google those next time. Definitely you want to go there. So let's look at that. Oh, and let's look at some other stuff we had. I found something from Teen Vogue. If you find popular general readership magazines, they will generally have stuff that you can also use. So as it turned out, that article was not so great because it turned out they were writers talking about women telling their stories. They didn't have a lot of visual facts. But I found something else too that was called We Can, which I just like the name of it. So I looked at that. This is the Oxfam fact sheet. You can tell that it's built for general readership because it's got lots of blocks of text. It's beautifully organized. It's meant to be used. So I'm going to focus on this brown box here and notice what I've got here. Climate change affects women because they are usually the main food producers. Because of no rain, girls have to drop out of school. Why do I like all that stuff, even though it's horribly dire? Because it gives me pictures to work with, which is what I desperately need rather than just abstraction. So this turned out to be a great resource. This Wired magazine, which is, general readership, I knew this would be good because of the title. It says, Climate Change is Brutal for Everyone, but Worse for Women. What that title tells me is that the article is going to be very direct. It's got two statements there, and so it's not going to be abstract. So let's look at what I see there. This article is filled with stories about climate change and women around the world, but it's got this one story about East Africa. And in this story, it's a fact about men having to walk much farther, 10 times farther to find water for their cattle. Because of that, women cannot go with them so far and milk the cattle and then get the milk and the money from selling it. So that has changed their economy and their life completely. So that's another great piece. In this, climate change impacts women more than men. This title also tells me it's going to tell me stuff. I've got this fact, and this is not a fact that is hidden. We might have heard this, but it's very good for being bad, and I'll tell you why. 80% of the people that are displaced around the world from climate change are women. Here's what's so important about that number. It's a huge number. It's completely out of balance to population. So it's a number that it's a startling statistic, which is fits in our need to make things surprising. It also allows me to make analogies. So I'm going to make analogies so that people here in New England can picture that and see what that would be like if 80% of the women from your church or school disappeared. So that's a very useful thing. So here's my first two facts. I'm keeping my facts on these digital sticky notes here. We've got women, 80% of those displaced. Climate change means drought, which means certain things. So this is my collection of sticky notes, and let's move on. I was really glad to find this article about Australia because Australia is very current and it's right in the news now. And we're seeing lots of images from Australia. And some of the interesting images we're seeing from Australia are of animals because of their unique ecosystem and the unique animals there. And we all respond emotionally to koala bears and one of those other kangaroos. So I'm going to use that as part of an analogy, as a visual. But I learned that in this article about domestic violence that women and children are disproportionately affected and 14 times more likely to die in a natural disaster on a global scale. So that was amazing to me. Again, a much more startling statistic than I would have expected. So now I have a couple of more things in my fact sheet. Women and children 14 times likelier to die of natural disasters than men. And this other piece that I learned from this article, that domestic violence shoots up, and some research in New Zealand shows that it shot up at one place 300% at a domestic violence center. And I'm sure we're going to see that in other places around the world. So that's sort of around the world. Now let's see, in my next part of the video, I'm going to show you what we can find more closer in our own neighborhood.